Live from KSAT 12, the 6 o'clock news starts right now.
And the bitterly cold air, it is now in San Antonio, plus that wind.
Oh, that wind. Those cold temperatures expected to last the next couple of days. Let's get right to meteorologist Adam Caskey for the very latest. Adam.
Oh, that cold
wind is crazy.
Yeah,
that wind.
The wind, the cold air, it's arrived. If you stepped outside lately, it's very obvious that it has arrived. Compared to this time yesterday, the hill country is about 25 to 30 degrees cooler. Actual air temperatures right now. I want to point out Cotulla because at 5 o'clock, Cotulla was still in the 60s. Now, Cotulla down to 46. Just like that. And temperature is going to continue to fall off very quickly and swiftly. 30 in Hondo, 22 Kerrville, 28 officially at San Antonio International, Stinson at 31 degrees. So all around Bexar County, we have now had our first freeze of the season. Even Gonzales down to 30. Temperatures continuing to fall off through the 20s, and we should settle around 18 degrees tomorrow morning. That's in San Antonio, a little bit cooler in the hill country. But of course, the actual temperature out there is just part of the story. We're dealing with the wind. Most recent wind gusts in excess of 30 miles per hour across most of San Antonio and even surrounding areas. Look at New Braunfels gusting up to 38. And this is going to be the case through the night, probably accelerating a little more with gusts up to about 45 miles per hour. So that's going to make it feel a lot colder outside. We'll talk more about the wind chills when this wind finally subsides and how many mornings we'll have to deal with a freeze in just a bit.
Thank you, Adam. Now let's talk about ways to get out of this cold. There are 7 warming centers open across the city and the county right now. All are available to anyone who needs a warm place to just hang out as the Arctic cold front makes its way through our area. Our John Paul Barajas at Christ the King Church in Universal City, one of the county's centers. John Paul, at 5, you said the church had 2 guests. Anyone else stop by to take advantage of the center? By the way, I noticed you moved inside as well.
Yeah, just a little bit of smart planning on the live shot there by me and photographer Joe Arredondo. But in the last hour or so, only one more person has arrived here at this location. And at this location, they have blankets, they have coats, jackets, other things to keep people warm, as well as crayons and other entertainment for kids, as well as even some hygiene supplies. But they do want to tell you, if you plan on going to a center, they want you to bring things that'll help you stay warm, as well as food, drinks, or any medications that you might need. There are also things you should not bring to the center, such as alcohol or any sharp objects like a can opener. At this location in Universal City, pets are not allowed unless they're a service animal, but kennels are available at centers located at Norm Oil, Southside Lions, and the Garza Center. The center's doors will be open as long as the county sees necessary or until the cold weather event passes. So if you or anyone you know needs to get out of the cold at any point in time, don't hesitate to do so. As for capacity and how many people the centers can hold, they don't have exact numbers, but Tom Pina with the county says other centers can be opened quickly if needed.
It's hard to say, right? We expect the lowest temperature very early in the morning hours, so we will have to see as the night progresses. We have to look back at what we had, what was the usage or what has utilization looked like in the past, and we know that so far with the system that we had set up, we've always met the needs.
Again, these centers are open for anyone who needs to get out of the cold and just hang out for some time. So if you want to get a list of locations near you, you can do that by going to KSAT.com. John Paul Barajas, KSAT 12 News.
All right, thanks, John Paul. Well, after last year's winter storm, a lot of you may be thinking, okay, no snow or ice expected this time, but will the power stay on? CPS Energy remains confident that your lights and your heaters will keep on running throughout this cold snap. But there is one thing CPS says could be a problem: those high winds. They tell our Camelia Juarez how crews are ready to respond to that.
So we feel very confident about this cold snap. All our plans are ready to go, and our employees are ready to go as well.
CPS Energy Communications Specialist Dana Soto-Day says power should flow smoothly because crews have been working to weatherize power plants by protecting critical equipment.
We've majorly revamped our system since Winter Storm Uri.
Since the 2021 winter storm that knocked out power for days, CPS says it has improved communication with state officials like ERCOT, as well as staying in touch with customers.
Our teams have weekly, daily, lately, because of the weather calls with ERCOT, the PUC, and all those partners to make sure that we're all aligned.
On top of handling this bitter cold, CPS Energy says it won't cut off anyone's power because of non-payment during the holidays or extreme weather. They will halt disconnections starting the day before Christmas.
CPS Energy will not be disconnecting homes during the holidays, and so that will encompass this weekend when we're seeing that cold weather.
CPS says if the lights do go out, high winds blowing tree limbs into power lines will likely be to blame.
With high winds comes down power lines, and so we just want people to, there's a chance there could be outages, but our crews are on standby to restore those things.
If there is a downed power line, assume it's live and call CPS for help. That number is 210-353-4357. Also, be sure to have a backup plan for family members who rely on electricity-based medical devices. Camalia Juarez, KSAT 12 News.
All right, Santa takes off in 2 days. Many across the country are trying to fly home for the holidays. But in the midst of all of this, parts of the country expecting not just cold weather, but snow and ice as well.
Yeah, so how's that going to affect flights here? Garrett Berger live at San Antonio International Airport, where he talked with travelers today about whether the weather is causing them problems and concerns. Garrett, what's the latest out there?
Well, I just checked some flight statuses a few minutes ago, and we are seeing quite a few delays and even a few cancellations, especially with arrivals coming in at the late or early hours tomorrow morning, rather. But overall, the airport has said they're not expecting the weather to be that much of an issue here. The ground is dried out. The director of airports told us earlier today. So that would mean that the ice and snow we might see in other parts of the country shouldn't be a problem here. But there's the other end of your trip to think about, wherever you're going to or coming from, or the stops in between. One family said they'd been trying unsuccessfully to get to Colorado for 2 days now out of 3 Texas cities. And a Florida family here in town for just a few days, worried about whether they'd be able to get to Colorado themselves when they fly out on Christmas Day.
Well, Christmas Day, we have an Airbnb that's rented here. If that falls through, I mean, if our plans fall through, then we'll need an extra day at the Airbnb and just, make adjustments to the snowmobiling the next day.
But others were more confident in their chances for being home for Christmas, even if those around them weren't.
I'm not worried. Her dad's an airplane mechanic, and he told us it's just going to be rain, so I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
And my mom's a chronic worrier, so she wanted us to leave last night. So I'm just fingers crossed that they can take off on time.
The airport's recommending that if you are traveling in the next couple days, you keep an eye on their flight status tracker. They've got that online. You can find it pretty easily. Live at the airport, I'm Garrett Berger, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, Garrett. The sad reality is with this kind of bone-chilling cold, the San Antonio Fire Department predicts there will be more house fires over the next few days. Its spokesman says with 15 fatalities in the last year or so, it doesn't want to see another one, especially over the holidays. Jessica DeGriato tells us too many of these fires are preventable.
No one was there when a fire gutted a home near Bulverde Road late Wednesday night. The apparent cause, the San Antonio Fire Department spokesman says it was a heating lamp being used to warm the family's chickens. He says it's the kind of accident that happens when cold weather sets in.
We like to say predictable is preventable.
Spokesman Joe Arrington says the fire could be an example of why a heat source should never be left next to anything combustible, space heaters being among the most common.
Make sure those are at least 3 feet away from everything combustible that could catch on fire. If you leave the room, turn it off.
Arrington says it's also important to remember for space heaters, use wall plugs, not power surge protectors or extension cords. He says don't overload those and make sure they aren't covered up because they can overheat and short out. And he says carbon monoxide poisoning can be caused by ovens used for warmth and any exhaust inside from outdoor generators. Arrington says, remember, the last thing you want is one of these to show up at your house over the holidays.
Stay warm, but do it safely so that we don't want to meet you tonight is what we're saying, basically.
Jesse Degollado, KSAT 12 News.
The San Antonio Fire Department actually has more precautions you can take on its website, firesafesa.com. We also have a link on our website at ksat.com.
Meantime, a fire at a Northside home trapped a family in their backyard early this morning. This fire happened around 1:30 a.m. in the 1500 block of Lee Hall. That's not too far from I-10 in Fresno. San Antonio fire crews say it started on the overhang of the front porch of that home. The family stuck in the backyard, but firefighters were able to put that fire out quickly and rescue them. Little damage was done to the home as well. No word yet on what caused that fire. A big rig trying to avoid a crash on the highway ended up crashing into a house across the road instead. Take a look. It happened about 8 this morning near I-37 and Hot Wells Boulevard. San Antonio police say another driver's road rage caused the truck to crash. Officers say that angry driver pulled in front of the big rig and slammed on the brakes. That set the truck off course, causing the trailer to sway. At some point, the driver of the truck fell out of the cab. The truck then hit the side of the house on Avondale Avenue. No one was inside the home at the time. Police say no one seriously injured in this crash somehow. Typically in San Antonio, infrastructure upgrades are completed underground before then road repairs are made above ground. But KSAT Investigates found in the East Village neighborhood, that's not what happened. Weeks after new sidewalks and curbs were installed and a road was resurfaced, crews for saws showed up and tore up much of that. While officials for the utility at first said they didn't need to replace the water lines, that decision was then reversed. Now both the city and saws are giving different stories on when that change was communicated.
I just wanted some answers because, I've been living here for 27 years.
The story of this road repair nightmare coming up at 6:30. Meanwhile, let's check out the roads right now on this Thursday. 27 degrees outside. This is I-35 in Brooklyn. You're looking at both the upper and lower levels near downtown. You can see a lot of people out on the roads, but no major traffic tie-ups to tell you about, which is a very good thing. Plus, no precipitation, so these upper and lower decks don't have to worry about getting icy in all this cold weather and wind. Perhaps an even better thing. Still ahead here on the news at 6, the annual HEB Feast of Sharing finally back in person. After the break, hear from a volunteer about what this event means and how they were excited to serve people once again.
I'm Stefania Jimenez. Here's what we're working on for you tonight on the Night Beat. A child forced to do the unimaginable to survive a gunman's murderous rage. Our Lee Waldman sits down with a 12-year-old girl who covered herself in blood during the deadly shooting at Robb Elementary. We'll discuss how she's coping almost 7 months later. Plus, holding pet owners accountable. Officers with animal care services are checking to make sure that animals are protected from the freezing temperatures, what they'll be looking for, and what they're sharing with pet owners to keep their animals from being taken away. And one day after KSAT shared people's frustrations about construction on North New Braunfels Street, the city of San Antonio says that business owners got the wrong timeline for the work to be completed. You'll find out when the construction is now expected to wrap up. See you for these stories and a lot more tonight on the Night Beat. Thank you, Stephanie. See you at 10. Well, after 2 years of not being in person, the HEB Feast of Sharing back at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. It is back. Erica Hernandez gives us a look at the sights and sounds of this year's event.
There was dancing, there were flu shots, and plenty of food.
Usually it's a traditional turkey, but this time it was a brisket and sausage. Really, really good.
The 30th annual HEB Feast of Sharing was back in full swing after no in-person event for the past 2 years because of the pandemic.
So it feels great to be back in person, and I think it's incredibly important that we come together as a community and really celebrate because we've missed each other.
Lacey Kutzer, a volunteer for the past 16 years, was happy to see everyone back again.
What I love is that it brings the entire community together, and it really feels like it kicks off the holiday season, especially being 2 days away from Christmas.
And those attending were really enjoying themselves.
I'm having a fantastic time listening to Selena music, surrounded by everybody. Everybody's in a wonderful spirit.
The HEB Feast of Sharing began in 1989 and regularly serves more than 340,000 meals annually in 34 cities throughout Texas and Mexico. Today's San Antonio's event served about 10,000 barbecue meals. All left with full stomachs and very thankful.
Thanks to God and thanks to HEB for providing this for the community. I think it's very nice, that at least they get to have a meal, for Christmas, and very appreciative.
Erica Hernandez, KSAT 12 News.
Good job, HEB.
You bet. All right. Look outside with live cam, but look in the corner of the screen.
All right.
Does that say 20s?
It says Kalahari. Is that the Kalahari
No,
thing?
look
The
down.
live cam?
Straight down. Straight
that
down
one.
from there.
That one. Oh, okay.
That little teeny number. Quite literally.
Oh, boy. This is quite the cold front, huh?
So I'm going to tell you, I mowed part of my lawn this morning.
Yeah?
And then covered plants in the afternoon. That's South Texas,
That is
right
so
there.
South Texas
Yeah.
of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Picking up acorns as well, right?
Yeah.
And now they're just getting blown all over the place with that wind. I want to start with a little comparison here to February of 2021. And I know we've gone over this before, but in case you've missed it, we'll start with this, then get into how cold it is, how cold it feels, how cold it's going to feel when we'll warm up. Can we go any faster? Let's get right to it. All right. February 2021, 107 hours straight below freezing in San Antonio. This little cold snap is what I'm going to call it. At most, say in the off chance we don't get above freezing tomorrow afternoon, we could see up to 40 to 42 hours below freezing. It's a fraction of what we had back in February 2021. No precipitation either. One of the big issues February of 2021 was the ice and snow. Not just one event, but a few precipitation events. And the coldest we got was 9. The coldest we'll get here is 18. And that's going to come tomorrow morning, Saturday morning as well. We're going to do it all over again. Sunday morning, 22 degrees, and we won't see mornings above freezing until Tuesday of next week. And speaking of Christmas 22, our forecast here is to have the second coldest Christmas morning on record, not afternoon, just second coldest Christmas low temperature on record. That's what we're on track to get. Across the state, look at these numbers. Amarillo 4, Lubbock at 10, Abilene 14, Dallas 14. We had some very light snow with the frontal passage and behind the front earlier today in Abilene and even DFW area. 30 in Gonzales and Hondo, Pleasanton down to 33, Laredo 65. Not for long. Fredericksburg now 18. So already seen some teens in parts of the hill country. These temperatures are falling off quickly. Castroville, the exception at 34, but surrounding locations, for the most part, below freezing. And Castroville, you're going to be below freezing, probably within minutes. Canyon Lake now at 27. You get the idea. Some 20s out there right now locally. Here's what we're expecting tomorrow morning, upper teens. So Kelly Field, Lackland area, about 19. Same with Alamo Ranch, 18 as you get up into the Converse area, even Stone Oak about 17, Bernie, Bulverde 14, Floresville, Pleasanton 21 in the morning. By the afternoon, briefly and barely above freezing, probably mid-30s here in town and staying at and slightly below freezing in parts of the hill country. Christmas Eve afternoon, so Saturday afternoon, we're up to 41 degrees, an improvement. And then Christmas Day, we'll have those high temperatures in the afternoon, upper 40s, right near 50. Middle of next week, 60s. The cold snap will be a thing of the past. By next Wednesday, we're near 70 degrees. All right, the winds, of course, an issue. Gusting up to 35 right now. We will see gusts up to 45 miles per hour tonight. So to exposed skin, to uncovered skin outside when that wind's blowing, right now it feels like the teens. Wind chills are down in the teens. But look at this bottom number, the wind chill forecast. Down in the single digits as early as 10 p.m. And that's going to be all the way through sunrise tomorrow. The first part of the day tomorrow, wind chills at times in the single digits. The wind will finally subside by about the noon hour tomorrow, and you're not going to have those bitterly cold wind chills. However, Mountain Cedar, it's likely to spike. A wind out of the north, likely to raise and boost that Mountain Cedar reading for tomorrow. So tomorrow as we go through the day, we'll have a lot of sunshine, nothing but sunshine, which does go a long way with this cold air around. That sun helps out the pipes a little bit and any exposed surfaces. And then Saturday, Sunday, actually sunny throughout the 7-day forecast. And again, temperatures rebound by the early to middle part of next week.
The faces I was making over those wind chills.
Yeah.
Let's see them. Come on, let's see them.
None of them were good.
They're all of them you've seen before, Cascade.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
For completely
Usually
different
directed at Adam or myself, but now it's the weather, so that was kind of refreshing.
Yeah. I like to spread the wealth.
Yeah. By the way, I am a firm believer, and I will believe it to my grave, Tony Parker belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Well, and just the way he played, too. I mean, he won 4 NBA championships. He's had international connection as well. But as you say, the way he played was just all out. When we come back, we'll talk about that Hall of Fame nomination. We'll hear from the current Spurs right now about that. And also, looks like the Philadelphia Eagles will be missing a key piece when they face the Dallas Cowboys. Coming up. Our San Antonio Spurs are in New Orleans tonight, where they'll face the Pelicans for the 3rd time this season. So far, they're 0-2 against New Orleans. They lost to the Pelicans back on November the 23rd, 129-110. Again on December the 2nd, 117-99. As part of that season-long 11-game losing streak, but before tonight's game, all the talk at shoot-around was about the Hall of Fame nominations for both head coach Greg Popovich and former Spur Tony Parker. We heard about Pop at 5, now about the 4-time NBA champion, hoping to get the call to the Hall in his first year of eligibility.
Right, yeah, he was a winner to start off with. Like you said, being fearless, attacking the paint, but really anything he did was fearless. He didn't care if guys were bigger than him, stronger than him, whatever it was. He was always going in there and figuring out a way, to get to the basket, to get a bucket. And then, like you said, he continued to develop the rest of his game around that. But yeah, he was a fearless competitor. He was a winner, big time. I think he had, that Finals MVP early in his career with the team that they had was crazy.
Yeah, that was 2007 when they swept the Cleveland Cavaliers. Next up, the Spurs taking on the Pelicans tonight at 7 o'clock. Highlights for you tonight on the Night Beat.
Pro football coverage, powered by Davis Law Firm.
When the Philadelphia Eagles face the Dallas Cowboys on Christmas Eve in the NFC East and home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs, I should say, on the line, they'll be without their star quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who's already tied Randall Cunningham for the most touchdowns in franchise history, will not be able to play. He's sitting out due to a sprain on his throwing shoulder, happened in the third quarter. The Eagles' 25-20 victory over the Bears, and Travis Gibson drilled him into the ground. As a result, Gardner Minshew will lead the Eagles in Arlington on Saturday.
Obviously he's disappointed. He's disappointed because he wants to play. He's again, like I said, the toughest guy I know, and we have to do what's best as the organization to put him in a safe spot, because he'd play through anything, right? And he showed that in that fourth quarter against Chicago, that he did play through it. He played through everything, and so obviously disappointed. Wants to be out there with his teammates. Those are hard conversations you have to have sometimes.
Right now, if the Cowboys are going to upset the Eagles on Christmas Eve, they're going to have to need Dak Prescott to take care of the ball. In 8 games since his return, Dak has thrown 10 interceptions, including 2 in the 30-24 overtime loss to the Jaguars. But on the other end of the ball, CeeDee Lamb is on fire. Through 14 games, he's already made his second 1,000-yard season, topped his career high in receptions with 81, tied his career high with 6 touchdowns. What does his head coach think of his productivity this season?
I mean, he's always, whether he's returning punts, running the ball out of the backfield, he's always performed with a very consistent energy. So I just think really this year you're just seeing CD take the next step because he was given more opportunities. But I think for a young player, he's been extremely consistent, and obviously he's had things to learn from and grow, just like any young receiver, as far as getting connected to the quarterbacks and that. So that's all a natural process. But I just love the way he plays and the physicality he plays with, and especially with a smile on his face.
All right, kickoff on Christmas Eve in Arlington is set for 3:25 p.m. And coming up tonight on the Night Beat, UTSA head football coach Jeff Traylor talks about that tweet he made that went viral.
The tampering tweet.
There you go.
Thanks, Greg.
The story of that road repair nightmare is up next.
Major road repairs interrupted by an even bigger miscommunication between the San Antonio Public Works Department and SAWS.
Yeah, KSAT Investigates found that brand new curbs and sidewalks and a layer of paving all torn up after the utility said it needed to go in and install water lines. As Dylan Collier reports, stuck in the middle of this blunder are the people who live here.
Just went through all this almost a whole year, and now we got to go through it again.
Rick Noak has lived on Castleview in the East Village neighborhood for 27 years. And while he was at first grateful the city was resurfacing his street and building sidewalks flat enough for kids to once again ride their bikes on them, Rick's had a front row seat for quite the infrastructure oopsies. Shortly after crews for Public Works completed a significant portion of the $972,000 road repair project, including an initial layer of paving in front of Rick's home, crews working on behalf of SAWS showed up. Those sidewalks, some of which were so new that the wooden forms were still in place, had to be torn up as Castleview became a construction site for the second time this year. Much of Castleview, a street that was on the brink of having its last layer of pavement put down, now bears the scars of a large trench dug through the middle of it for water lines.
If I lived on the street, I'd be frustrated.
Paul Berry from San Antonio's Public Works Department said SAW's installation of a new water main and service lines should have obviously taken place first. But the utility company told them no improvements were necessary. In March, according to Berry, weeks after the city started construction,
SAWS came back to us and said, actually, we do need to do some upgrades of the water pipes.
How did that happen?
You're going to have to talk to SAWS about that.
So we did.
When did SAWS learn that street repairs had already begun on Castleview?
I'm sorry, I didn't. It was, all I know is that I can't address that detail of question. I can tell you that when the city provided us with their list of streets that they intended to replace in 2022, that was in 20, then that was when we initially had that information that we didn't think that we would need to replace it.
Ann Hayden says after SAWS opted out of putting in new lines, an external consultant examined the area and came back with a different verdict, that because of the facilities it served, Castleview should be at the top of the list for water infrastructure replacement. Hayden says SAWS informed Public Works of the new plan last year before the resurfacing work began, contradicting Berry's timeline of what happened.
I think if you look at this situation, it's an anomaly, that this is something that isn't typical of what we need to do.
The city's always talking about taxpayers' money, putting it to good use and stuff, and this to me is not putting it to good use when you just replace the road. I don't want to complain, but someone's got to.
For KSAT Investigates, I'm Dylan Collier.
Now, one thing that Hayden and Berry did agree on, SAWS is responsible for replacing the torn up sidewalks and the curbs. The work on Castleview is part of a nearly $4.5 million water main replacement project.
Up next, tamales are a holiday tradition in the Alamo City. Hear from some people who waited in line for hours this morning to get some just in time for Christmas.
Plus, how a New Braunfels business is taking century-old artwork and making it look new again after the break.